I don't really like the holidays. I used to hate the holidays. So what am I doing? Why did I sign up for this gig at this time? Because I've managed to make an accommodation with the holidays over a long period of time. And if you know how I did it, it might help some of you who may have some problems with the holidays as well. Now, why don't I like them? Because of the disconnect. You know, they're supposed to be warm and fuzzy and joyful and connected and generous. And usually they feel very weird, at least to me. And the reason they feel so weird is that I grew up in New York City on Central Park West, and my parents were embarrassed Jews who didn't know how to celebrate anything. So we didn't have a tree, we didn't have a Hanukkah bush, we didn't have presents. There was just this 2-week kind of abyss. And what was I going to do in it? Well, as soon as I learned to read, I went to the library, and I came back with a stack of books this big. If you saw me walking down the street, you would see legs and books. And then I sat in my room like a termite eating through wood, and I read and I read and I read until the 2 weeks, thank God, were over. And I didn't even like school that much, but I was glad to get back to it because then the holidays were over. And so I grew up. And then I said, I'm a grown-up now. I don't have to deal with these holidays at all. And it was even better because I married a man who didn't like the holidays either. He had a fine nose for hypocrisy. And he said, I don't like this stuff. So how did we spend the holidays? We lay down in the dark. And because it's very dark, especially on the East Coast. And it's true we listen to holiday music because it's pretty good. But other than that, nothing. No tree, no presents. Oh, it felt so free and grand until we had children. And, you know, the thing about lying in the dark is that we got affirmation from the radio, from KPFA, from Robert Bly during a poetry reading. He said, in the dark time of year, the seeds lie in the ground and wait for the light to come. So we were seeds lying in the ground, but children don't want to be seeds lying in the ground till the light comes. They know that there's something out there for them. And so we had to figure out how to do Christmas. And I had a Christmas guru. She was Emily Leith. She was the wife of my dance teacher. And she had a great big bosom and long gray hair and fierce eyes. And she had come from money in Connecticut, but now she was very poor. But she knew how to do Christmas, so I kind of followed her around. And I saw her with the decorations, and I saw her with the gifts, and I saw the spirit of Christmas as she created it. Sometimes it was more effective than others. I mean, there was the candelabra she made out of copper piping with the candles in it that she hung over the bed until the bedding caught fire. That wasn't such a good one. But, you know, basically she had Christmas down and I tried to do it. And that meant buying things. And you should know that I come from a long line of very cheap people. And I am cheap. But I had to, go to the store and buy stuff. And it was Toys R Us. It was just jangly and huge and confusing. And the thing about gifts is that I don't necessarily think that people need stuff. And if they do, I don't know what they need. And so it's very uncomfortable, but I did know a little about the kids. So for the girl, I got, a doll stroller, and for the boy, I got a ride-on plastic train, and I got a lot of other stuff, so we would have the pile of presents the way they have them in the magazines. And so you might want to know how it worked. Well, there was the morning of Christmas. There was the tree twinkling, and there were 2 children, small children, crouched each over their piles of presents, looking daggers at each other. This was not sweetness and light. But we did what we could. And, with a lot of ambivalence and a lot of resistance, we kind of provided a half-assed Christmas for a while, until the 70s were upon us. You remember Desiderata? You do your thing and I do mine, and if a path should happen to cross. It was just whatever you want to do. And we were going out to get another tree, and John and I just looked at each other, And he said, this is bullshit. And I said, yeah. And he said, let's cancel Christmas. And I said, yeah. And we felt so free and so clear and so loose. And we told the children, and they just looked at us. Because, you know, we were the grown-ups, the putative grown-ups, and they were the kids, and we made the rules, no matter how screwy. And we had no idea that our daughter had spent the semester in art shop making presents for us. And when she heard that we canceled Christmas, she took them into the back field and she burned the poems and the pictures and the books, and she smashed the pottery and she cut up the weavings and she buried it all. But we didn't know a thing until much, much later. And so we avoided Christmas. And I thought, you know, then the kids were up and out of the house, and I said, we're finished. We don't have to do this anymore in any incarnation, until I got the job of my dreams. But more than 20 years ago, I got a job at the library, and I discovered to my horror that they celebrate the holidays at the library, and I was supposed to give a gift. And, you know, so I knew how to make biscotti. I made biscotti, and I put them in little tins. I bought the tins, actually. And nobody broke a tooth. I was glad. They were very hard biscotti. But I knew I didn't want to do this every year because I was in for the long haul. So what could I give that didn't cost anything but came from the heart? And then I knew it. Poems. I love poetry. They're like food and drink to me. And I happen to have seen this poem that grabbed me viscerally. I saw it at a photo exhibition. It was on the wall next to a photo. I was waiting to go to the memorial service of a friend. And this poem just spoke so directly that I got out a pencil and paper and I wrote it down. And I knew this is the poem that I wanted to give. How did it go? God's joy moves from unmarked box to unmarked box, from cell to cell, like rainwater down into the flower beds, like roses up from the ground. Now in a plate of rice and fish, now in a cliff covered with vines, now in a horse being saddled. It hides within these until one day it cracks them open. This was my idea of a holiday poem. It was by Rumi, and this was long before Rumi was hot stuff. But I sat down at the typewriter, this is how long ago it was, and I typed the poem, and then I Xeroxed it, and then I chopped it up into little oblongs. And I looked at it, and I said, it's a good poem, but it's not exactly festive looking. So for some reason, I cut it into an egg-shaped. Now I had an egg-shaped piece of paper with a good poem on it. That wasn't quite enough. And then I realized what my unconscious had done, because I could make a pouch. It was, you know, kind of pouch-shaped, and I'm a pack rat, and I have a lot of scraps. So I made all these pouches with drawstrings of all sorts, and I slipped the poem in each, and then I held it up, and it was cute, but a little flimsy still. A pouch should hold more than just a poem. And then I realized that the sea is really generous and free. And I live in Bolinas, so I walk on the beach, and it's just littered with the most beautiful shells and stones. And I picked them up, and I put them in my pockets, and I took them home to put in the pouches. Now, at first, I thought I could match everything up. You know, there was the zebra stripe pouch, and the black and white striated stone, and there was the yellow, you know, drawstring, and that woman was really sophisticated. She would like it. And then I realized this was just too complicated. So I just dropped willy-nilly stones or shells in each pouch. And then I put them in a basket, you know, the kind you'd serve biscuits in. And I covered them with a cloth with the drawstrings hanging out, kind of like tails. And I brought them to our staff meeting, and I plunked them down, and I said, see the string that you like, and give it a tug and see what comes out. There were all kinds, silk and velvet and hemp, light and dark. And so they pulled it out, and they held up their pouch, which now had a little weight in it. They opened it up. They took out the shell or stone. They admired it. They took out the poem, and some were pleased and some were puzzled. But still, that was my gift. That was the first round. And I actually learned that some hung their pouches on the Christmas tree, so it wasn't so far off the track after all. And so for the next 20 years, I gave poems of all sorts, usually not very big because the paper had to be small. A lot of Rumi, a lot of Mary Oliver, some Juan Ramon Jimenez, Donald Justice, Jane Kenyon, Kay Ryan, so many poems. And this continued. They always had something a little more festive about them until I'd say about 6 years ago, I reached the apotheosis. Because into the library came a woman. And she said, you know, I used to be in the upholstery business. I've gone out of business. I have all these upholstery samples. I don't know what to do with them. She looked right at me. She said, I bet you know what to do with them. And I said, yeah. So she brought them in. I mean, they're not boxes, they're cartons. And we put them on the staff room table. And oh, what a treasure trove of fabrics. But I said to everybody, now just pick whatever you want. And they took a lot of fabric away, but still, big cartons, and I took the rest home because in the back of my mind I knew what I was going to do with them. I shoved them into the storage area, which you don't want to look at. It's where all the projects that may or may not get done live. And I just left them there for a while. This is a gestational period. And then it was August, you know, winter in Bolinas in August. And it was time to see what was really in there. And I hauled the cartons out, and I took them upstairs, and I delved into them. And oh, what a joy of fabrics. They were long and skinny, and I knew what I was going to make with them. I was going to make pillows, the kind of pillow that you want to put behind your head or in the small of your back. And I knew that each pillow would have a front and a back, print and solid. And so then I started to deal them out on the ground. The bright prints over there, and the muffled prints over there, and the velvets over there, and the silks over there, and the ginghams over there. Oh, it was so much fun for a librarian. And then I mated them front and back. And I folded up these potential pillows, and I put them back in the carton, and I put them back out into the storage area, and I let them ripen. Now it was November. It was time to make pillows. And you should know I'm a little obsessive-compulsive when it comes to a project. And in the past, I would have gotten on that horse and ridden until I was exhausted. I would have cut, pin, so. You know, I would have exhausted myself and ended up contorted and not very happy. And I decided I wanted to put happiness and peace into these pillows. I would do each pair one at a time. It would be a contemplative process. So I pinned, and I cut, and I sewed, and I stuffed, and I sewed. And even at this slow and careful pace, the pillows started to pile up. Now you may wonder what I stuffed them with. I had lots of pillows just hanging out in that storage room, and I eviscerated those, but I needed more. And I wasn't going to go to the store to buy stuffing, $6, God forbid. And there I was in the free box in Bolinas, where many of my wonderful treasures come from. And this is the way the free box works. Pillows, 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 pillows. And coming toward me was a pair of legs with pillows rising above them. Pillows, 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 pillows. And I just stuck out my hand, got those pillows, walked off with them, and I took the innards out, stuff. I had so many pillows that my sewing room looked like a seraglio. I loaded them up back into the carton, and I took them to the staff meeting, and I laid them all out. People said, that's a lot of pillows. I said, yes, it is. They said, can we have 2? And I said, you better. And so they chose their pillows, but I had a lot left. And so that whole season, I drove around visiting friends, and I'd say, come out with me. And I'd lift the trunk of the car, and I'd say, pillows. Choose your pillows. I have some left still. Oh. But I should tell you the poem that went with that particular giddy giving time. It was by a nun, because it was graffiti scrawled in the rafters, and it went, dance like nobody's watching, work like you don't need money, love like you've never been hurt, if only. Now, I'll give you about 4 more poems that are very short, so you can get the feel of them. Rumi, there's Rumi. Something opens our wings. Something makes boredom and hurt disappear. Someone fills the cup in front of us. And then there was Donald Justice during one of those times of the terror attacks. See how the fearful chandelier trembles each time you open your mouth to sing. Sing! Yes. Then there was the one by Mary Oliver. That was last year's. And it went, pay attention. Be astonished. Tell about it. And this was this year's, 4 lines. But still, you'll notice it has a kind of a link to the very first poem. It's by Leonard Cohen. Ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in.